20 years ago, I remember this is a true story. A colleague of mine was a psychologist. He asked me, he said, Narendra, how would you complete this sentence about yourself? I am a, complete the sentence for me. And I went, well, I'm a father and a teacher. And he looked at me and says, And I said, what do you mean, He says, usually men tend to answer this question by saying, I'm an engineer, I'm a scientist, I'm a businessman. Then you, in fact, in the same sentence, you said two things. You said, I'm a father and a teacher. Most people usually say one thing. I said, well, you didn't tell me I had to say one thing. You just said complete the sentence. And he said, no, that's fine. It's just unusual.
बहुत पहले से उन कदमों की आहट जानी.
I was born in northwest of India, a small town called Meerut, but I grew up in northeast, a small town called Ranchi, and then I worked in Bombay. That's where I'm from. Meerut, Ranchi, and Bombay, all of them in India. I came to the United States in the fall of 1982 to pursue postdoctoral studies at Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois. I was finishing up my PhD while I was working as a scientist for the Atomic Energy Commission in India. And at that time, a professor from Northwestern University was visiting India. And during his visit, he recruited me for this position, which was available at Northwestern University. So literally, as soon as I turned in my PhD thesis and it was approved, I flew to the United States. So my entry in my first few days in the United States were really very positive kind of an experience. And I went to school. And when I got to school, one of the most amazing things happened. I was told to go see the provost. And I said, okay. And when I went to the provost's office, we made some small talk. And then the provost handed me a check for my first month's salary. So I was very happy, and I thanked her, and I asked her, I said, this is amazing. I've not been here a full day, and you have a check for me. And she says, well, we know you're coming from India. You're not likely to have a large amount of money, and we don't want your stay to be unpleasant, so we pay you your first month's check in advance. I tell you, that does not happen at too many places in India, Europe, Australia. I've traveled all over the world. It does not happen often. And I think it just colored me. So since then, I've had my own share of, negative experiences. But somehow the negative experiences don't stick on me. Whatever the negative experience I have, who cares? Yeah. So because my first week was so pleasant, and actually my first year at Northwestern was very, very pleasant. And it has colored me toward such a positive affect toward the United States that it can explain almost everything about my behavior, my attitude to living in this country. I had a great time doing research, and I love doing research even now, but I don't want that to be the center of my life. I needed something else to be at the core of my life, and that had to be helping other people accomplish what they are capable of.
And Dick talked about the 2003 Student Senate Professor of the Year and the Carnegie Foundation Illinois Professor of the Year. But that wasn't the highest award. The highest honor for me, when the Student Senate decided to have a debate called Should the US Invade Iraq? They came to my office and they said, Dr. Jaggi, we would like you to moderate this debate. And I said, of course, but why do you ask me? There are 168 professors on campus. And they said, because we know you can be fair, because we know you are respectful, because we know you will let everyone speak fairly and honestly.
To me, it seems that teaching, certainly in the United States and absolutely certainly at Illinois Wesleyan, is the best combination of having all the rewards of bringing up children without actually bringing them up for 18 years or 20 years. You're interacting with them during a time of their life where they can grow a lot, and you can help them do that. So that's very rewarding. And of course, now I've been a professor for 21 years, so many of these students have gone out into the real world and are doing really amazing things. And I see my students as equals in the sense that I must respect them, but I can't help but feel a little bit protective about students, so that, father kind of a thing bleeds into my teaching life also. In some sense of the word, I had gotten American inside while I was living in India. In India, there is a general sense that by and large we first peg you in the hierarchy and then decide how to treat you. So my supervisor, for example, he's no longer. He was an examiner for an exam at the university. So he brings these 30 exams, graduate level exams, mind you. And he says, Narendra, I'm the examiner, and not Narendra Jaggi. And I want you to grade these. So I said, I need your help. So I said, fine, you're my boss, I'll help you. So I start grading these papers. And a friend of mine comes into my office after I'm done with about half of them and says, so you're the goat this time. I said, what do you mean goat? He said, you will do the work and he will make the money. I said, what do you mean he'll make the money? He said, you get paid N dollars for each paper that you grade. Is he going to give you the money? I said, I didn't know there was any money involved. I just thought he needed my help and I was happy to help him. So he said, nope, he makes a lot of money. I said, really? So I finished grading and I went back to my advisor and I said, this friend of mine told me that you get paid so much money, so I expect you will give me at least half of it. And he looks at me and says, no, you're not getting any money. And I said, then you're not getting the exams back. Because I did the work. If you had told me ahead of time, I would have told you I want at least half the money. And you didn't tell me. It's not fair. So I told him, it's not fair. So he says, if it were not for me, you would never get this experience of grading graduate level exams. And I said, well, that may be true, but if it were not for me, these exams would not have been graded. So I need half the money. And it caused a real problem between the two of us for a very long time. I felt like a misfit in that culture. Whereas when I come to the United States, my boss, Lyle, and the provost, they treat me as an equal on the day I arrive. Not that everything in the United States is hunky-dory, but there is a general sense that we, by and large, treat people as equals. So the center of my personal life is my family, my wife and my daughter. And if I broaden out from the center a little bit, so the next circle, inner circle of relationships, is a group of faculty members from ISU and a few from Illinois Wesleyan. Once a month we meet together and we cook fancy food. We love eating and drinking, so we call it the gourmet dinner group. And we've been together for 17 years. There is a similarly small inner circle of a small number of Indian friends. And that circle is not larger than my inner circle of quote-unquote American friends. From the Indian group, the primary fulfillment that is over and above that I get from my Wesleyan community or my gourmet dinner group is the ability to exercise my language, to be able to speak in my mother tongue or other languages from India. Also to be able to enjoy music from India in multiple languages and dance. It's the language, culture of the country where I grew up. That's what I end up sharing more with my Indian American friends. The different thing with Indian friends is the kinds of concerts I might go to will be in Indian classical dance. Often the kind of food that I will eat with Indian friends is Indian, because there I do think my wife and I are anomalous, that we love all kinds of food. Even at home, we don't cook Indian food more than 3 times a week. But with our Indian friends, most of them love Indian food. The differences are, I think, just the experiences, because I immersed myself, I think, far more deeply than most Indian Americans do in the broader American culture. I'm blessed that I have very close friends, acquaintances, and interactions with people across a broad spectrum of financial class and also races. I have, friends from almost every ethnic group. I have had dinners with literally the wealthiest person in town, and then people who don't even make the minimum wage. So that spectrum of friendship, and many of them are friends, not just acquaintances, has made me, I think, a little atypical. So it's atypical only because of some blessings of a broad range of experiences. Keeping the Indian in me alive, I can give more credit to to my wife and my daughter than to myself.
In this picture, she's literally in the middle, but in her real life, she's figuratively in the center of her small family. And you can't see her hands because in real life, she keeps us together.
My wife would drive our daughter for an hour to take her to a teacher who taught Indian classical dance. Because of that rigorous training, our daughter ended up being an amazing Indian classical dancer. So she has performed on multiple stages in many countries. Now I'm also very educated about Indian classical dance, but the education is secondhand. It's via my wife and my daughter. My affection for Indian theater and Indian music, that I have since childhood. So when we travel back to India, we love to re-experience Indian theater and Indian music concerts. And even in Chicago, there are times when we would drive a long distance to watch a good Indian classical dance concert. But I became a citizen in 2008, late 2007. And the only reason for me to become a citizen was because when President Obama announced that he was going to run for, no, at that time, Senator Obama announced that he was going to run for president, I wanted to do 3 things. I wanted to vote for him, I wanted to contribute to his campaign, and I wanted to help him win. And so I became a citizen to do those 3 things. I don't see national identity as a core component. So I was an Indian by default, right? I was born. So they say you are an Indian. Fine if you say so. But now becoming a US citizen meant 2 things. First, they make you officially raise your hand and renounce all allegiance to any other country. I was very uncomfortable doing that. And so in my mind, I had to interpret the word allegiance and say, okay, I'm not really renouncing everything. But you have to do that, and then you have to announce your allegiance and sole allegiance to the United States of America. That too is difficult for me, because my allegiance is to my, maybe at core, to my daughter, to my family, and then to my profession, to my students, to being a physicist, to being a teacher. Those are my allegiances.
You will go out into communities that are rich and diverse. Here at Wesleyan, we are very thoughtful about being very inclusive in all of our honors. I charge you, keep your eyes open, keep your ears open. Watch out, make sure that the prism of your own community, of your own organization, fairly, inclusively honors all aspects of human richness and human accomplishment. Thank you very much.